This Sunday we hear the parable of the Good Shepherd, and I think a lot of times the Good Shepherd image in some ways has gotten soft for people. They've kind of domesticated the Good Shepherd, and when we really go back and look at the reference that Jesus is making to a passage from the book of Ezekiel, we see that there's really nothing soft about it. God says through the prophet Ezekiel, "Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Woe to the shepherds of Israel who have been pasturing themselves. Should not shepherds pasture the flock? As I live, because my sheep became plunder, because my sheep became food for wild beasts, for lack of a shepherd, because my shepherds did not look after my sheep, but pastured themselves and did not pasture my sheep. I will take my sheep out of their hand and put a stop to their shepherding my flock, so that these shepherds will no longer pasture them. I will deliver my flock from their mouths, so it will not become their food. I will lead them out from among the peoples and gather them from the lands. I will bring them back to their own country and pasture them upon the mountains of Israel, in the ravines and every inhabited place in the land. In good pastures I will pasture them. I myself will pasture my sheep. I myself will give them rest. The lost I will search out, the strays I will bring back, the injured I will bind up, and the sick I will heal. But the sleek and the strong I will destroy. I will shepherd them in judgment." There's nothing soft about the shepherd referenced in the book of Ezekiel, and it's really in some ways a revolutionary statement of sorts that Jesus makes in declaring himself to be the good shepherd, because God told Ezekiel that he himself was coming into the world to shepherd his sheep, to gather them from the bad leaders, the false leaders that had been shepherding them. So Jesus shows up and he says, "Hey, I'm the good shepherd," right? He's placing himself, in the person of God, and that really riles up the Jewish leaders, some of whom have been, indicted in a sense by Jesus for their poor leadership, for their bad pasturing, for fleecing the flock. Right, so Jesus has this desire to gather to himself those who have not experienced, good religious leadership at the time, but also all those who have been scattered throughout the world through the exile, those whose hearts have been scattered by the experiences of life. Jesus does desire to bring them rest and safety and security and healing. He has a broad reach, and he goes in search of all who are lost. He leaves the 99 to go in search of the one. Right, but he also talks about how there are some who are not of this fold, and in some ways that references those particular Jewish leaders who had a sense that these are the true followers of God, and I've got the right way of doing things, and Jesus says no, they're not all here yet, right? Some of them may be the ones who are going to be gathered from exile, and many were those who had not yet come to faith in Christ, and Jesus shows that all those other flocks, or all those not yet in the flock, are united under his leadership, under his shepherding. But he also speaks deeply of the intimacy that the shepherd has with his sheep. I know mine. They hear my voice and they follow me, right? And maybe you've heard the stories of what it's really like to shepherd sheep and goats, if you will, but truly, honestly, it doesn't take long for sheep to get to know the voice of their shepherd, and they really do follow them wherever they go. And for us, it's just a reminder as Jesus uses this image and takes it in depth, right? Sometimes it doesn't take us long to know the voice of the shepherd, and sometimes I think we resist, and it takes us a lot longer to hear, understand, follow, listen wherever he goes. And yeah, sometimes it's a lifelong journey, but Jesus speaks in some ways giving us hope of the level of intimacy that we really desire, that we hear his voice and we turn and follow, because we know that he leads us to the rest that we so desire. He leads us to the healing that we desire. He leads us to, an abundance of food and drink, right? Ultimately in a spiritual sense, but truly in this life as well, he provides for us all that we truly need. So we can take some comfort and consolation in the image of the Good Shepherd, but also recognize that that it's not a soft image, right? It's not, Jesus isn't being soft. He's being, in a sense, revolutionary, right? And when we know what he has provided for us, because we've turned our entire lives over to him, passing through the gate that he is, and learning to follow him as the shepherd, yeah, it provides us comfort and consolation. But in the meantime, we really need to make that turn, right? We really need to enter deeply into life with him, listening deep in our hearts for the voice of the shepherd beckoning to us to provide us for all that we need.